Today, we're not just telling a story. We're unearthing an ancient blueprint for resilience, forgiveness, and the unbelievable twists of fate that prove purpose can be found even in the deepest pits. This is the epic saga of Joseph, a young man whose journey from unimaginable suffering to ultimate power isn't just history. It's a mirror of your own struggles and triumphs. Get ready, because this is Joseph, from pit to palace, the dreamer who saved a nation. In the sprawling, sun-baked lands of Canaan, where life was harsh but family bonds were everything, lived a man named Jacob. He was blessed with 12 sons, but his heart, worn with age, beat strongest for one, Joseph. Born of his beloved Rachel, Joseph was the apple of Jacob's eye, cherished above all. And Jacob, perhaps unwisely, showcased this love with a gift that would ignite a firestorm of envy. A magnificent, vibrant coat of many colors. It wasn't just a garment, it was a declaration, a symbol of favor that set Joseph apart, marking him as his father's chosen. But to his older brothers toiling in the fields, it was a constant, searing reminder of their father's blatant favoritism, a spark that quickly became a raging inferno of resentment. As if the coat wasn't enough, Joseph was also a dreamer. Not just an ordinary dreamer, but one whose dreams were vivid, prophetic, and incredibly audacious. He dreamt that his brothers' sheaves of grain would bow down to his own. Then he dreamt that the very sun, moon, and 11 stars, his father, mother, and brothers, would bow before him. Can you imagine the reaction? To his brothers, these weren't divine messages. They were arrogant boasts, insults poured onto open wounds. Their simmering resentment, already a dangerous brew, now boiled over into outright malice. This favoritism, these dreams, they were a ticking time bomb. One fateful day, a day that would forever alter the course of history, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers as they tended the flocks in the distant fields. Little did he know, he was sending his beloved son straight into the jaws of a storm he couldn't possibly foresee. When the brothers spotted Joseph approaching in the distance, his colorful coat a defiant splash against the barren landscape, the anger they had bottled for years erupted. "Here comes the master dreamer," they scoffed, their voices laced with venom. Their fury was so intense that their initial horrifying plan was to murder him, silence his dreams forever, and toss his body into a desolate pit. But Reuben, the eldest, perhaps with a sliver of conscience, intervened. "Let's not shed blood," he urged, his voice heavy with the pretense of mercy. "Just throw him into this pit right here." His true intention was to return later, under the cloak of darkness, and rescue Joseph. But while Reuben was away, fate, or perhaps providence, intervened. A caravan of Ishmaelite traders, their camels laden with spices, ambled into view. A new, chilling opportunity presented itself. Why stain their hands with murder when they could profit? For 20 pieces of silver, the paltry price of a slave, they sold their own brother. Can you even begin to comprehend Joseph's terror? His pleas were unheard, his cries swallowed by the wind as he was dragged away, stripped of his vibrant coat, now deliberately smeared with goat's blood. A cruel deception to convince their father of his gruesome death. Imagine Jacob's agony, the grief that would tear his heart for years, believing his favorite son had been devoured by wild beasts. But Joseph was not dead. He was alive, bound, and heading into the unknown, a slave in a foreign land. His life, as he knew it, was over. But was it? Or was this just the beginning of a different kind of story? Joseph, a slave now, was thrust into the heart of ancient Egypt, a land of gods and pharaohs. He found himself in the sprawling house of Potiphar, a high-ranking officer of Pharaoh himself. Despite the crushing injustice, despite losing everything, Joseph possessed an extraordinary character, a spirit unbroken. He worked with unwavering diligence, with a quiet integrity that shone brightly, and it seemed that God blessed everything he touched. Soon, he became the chief steward of Potiphar's entire household, entrusted with all his master's affairs. He was a beacon of light in a dark situation. But trouble, it seems, has a way of finding those who are too good, too pure. This time it came in the seductive form of Potiphar's wife. Day after day, she tried to entice him, to lure him into her web. Joseph, steadfast in his faith and his moral compass, refused. "How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" he declared, his refusal firm. Can you feel the tension, the pressure he was under? Infuriated by his rejection and scorn, she twisted the narrative, falsely accusing him. Potiphar, heartbroken or enraged by the perceived betrayal, had Joseph thrown into Pharaoh's prison, a cold, unforgiving dungeon. From the pit in Canaan to the shackles of slavery, to the suffocating darkness of a prison cell in Egypt. Yet, even in prison, a place designed to crush the human spirit, God was still with Joseph. He gained the favor of the chief jailer, and soon two of Pharaoh's own officials, the royal cupbearer and the chief baker, found themselves in the same cell. Both had disturbing, perplexing dreams, and Joseph, with God's undeniable gift, interpreted them. The cupbearer would be restored to his position, and the baker would be executed. Joseph's only request: remember me when you are restored. But in the whirlwind of freedom and royal service, the cupbearer, in a cruel twist, forgot him. Forgotten again. How much can one man endure? 2 long, agonizing years crawled by. 2 years of Joseph remaining forgotten in the grim darkness of the prison. His hope surely tested, his faith perhaps wavering. But then, a disturbance in the highest echelons of power. Pharaoh himself began to have terrifying, inexplicable dreams. Dreams that none of his renowned wise men, his magicians or his astrologers could interpret. He dreamt of 7 fat, healthy cows emerging from the Nile, only to be devoured by 7 gaunt, sickly cows. Then 7 healthy, full ears of grain were swallowed by 7 thin, scorched ears. Egypt's future, a nation's fate, hung in the balance, captivated by these unsettling visions. It was then, in Pharaoh's moment of desperation, that the cupbearer finally, astonishingly, remembered Joseph. "I recall my offenses today," he stammered, remorse flooding his face. "There was a young Hebrew in prison who interpreted my dream perfectly." Joseph was hastily summoned, pulled from the shadows of his cell. His freedom just a dream a moment before. Brought before the most powerful man in the world, clad in simple prison clothes, Joseph stood with humble confidence. "It is not in me," he stated, attributing his gift to a higher power. "God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." And then, with divine insight, he revealed the dream's meaning. 7 years of unprecedented abundance, of overflowing harvest, would be followed by 7 years of devastating, crippling famine across all the land. And he offered not just an interpretation, but wise counsel. "Appoint a discerning and wise man," he urged Pharaoh, "to oversee the land, to gather and store up grain during the years of plenty, so that the nation will not perish during the devastating famine." Pharaoh, recognizing the undeniable Spirit of God in Joseph, declared, "Can we find anyone else like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" And in a breathtaking, almost unbelievable turn of events, Joseph, the despised brother, the unjustly accused slave, the forgotten prisoner, was elevated to the 2nd most powerful man in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. He was given a new Egyptian name, Zaphnath-Paneah, a royal wife and absolute authority to prepare Egypt for the coming crisis. Can you imagine the shock, the sheer magnitude of this turnaround? For 7 years, Egypt flourished. Joseph diligently, tirelessly gathered and stored grain like the sand of the sea, preparing for what was to come, a nation's destiny resting on his shoulders. Then, just as Joseph had foretold, the 7 years of plenty ended, and the dreaded famine began. It gripped not only Egypt, but all the surrounding lands, its cruel hand reaching far and wide. People from every nation flocked to Egypt, for only there was food, stored in abundance, thanks to Joseph's foresight. And among those who came, driven by hunger from the distant land of Canaan, weary, desperate brothers. 10 brothers who unknowingly bowed low before the powerful Egyptian governor, the very brother they had betrayed decades ago. Joseph recognized them instantly, his heart pounding. But he held his tongue, his face an unreadable mask. He tested them, his voice stern, accusing them of being spies, demanding they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to prove their honesty. He held Simeon hostage. The brothers, consumed by fear and guilt, remembered their past sin, the terrible deed that haunted them. "Surely we are being punished because of our brother Joseph," they lamented, their voices heavy with despair. Do you think they ever imagined this moment? They returned to their father Jacob, who was devastated at the thought of losing yet another son. But the famine grew more severe, its relentless grip forcing their hand. Judah, stepping up with newfound responsibility, promised to guarantee Benjamin's safety. They returned to Egypt, Benjamin finally with them. Joseph, overwhelmed by the sight of his full family, still kept his secret. He hosted a magnificent feast for them, then, in a final, agonizing test, had his silver cup secretly placed in Benjamin's sack. The cup was found, and Benjamin was accused of theft, facing eternal slavery. The brothers were in utter anguish, their father's life tied to this last son. It was then that Judah, transformed by years of remorse and love for his father, made a desperate, heartfelt plea. He offered himself, the one who had perhaps initiated the sale of Joseph in Benjamin's place. The weight of his words, the genuine remorse in his voice, the unbreakable bond of family, it broke Joseph. He could no longer control himself, sending everyone else out of the room. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" Imagine the shock, the terror, the utter disbelief etched on their faces. Their despised, abandoned, presumed dead brother, now the second most powerful man in the known world. They were speechless with fear, trembling before him. But Joseph, with incredible grace, reassured them. "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here," he declared, his voice filled not with bitterness, but with profound understanding. "Because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Pharaoh, hearing of Joseph's reunited family, welcomed them to Egypt, bestowing upon them the best of the land. Joseph sent wagons for his aging father, Jacob, and the incredible, tearful reunion finally took place. Jacob, who had mourned Joseph for decades, finally saw his son alive and powerful. "Now I can die," he declared, his heart full, "since I've seen your face and know that you are still alive." Joseph provided for his entire family throughout the famine, demonstrating immense love, protection, and provision. Years later, on his deathbed, Joseph looked at his brothers, who still harbored fears of revenge and still worried about his potential retribution. He uttered perhaps the most profound words of forgiveness and faith, words that echo through time and speak to us today. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The story of Joseph is a testament to unwavering resilience, profound faith, and the transformative power of God's plan, even when it involves immense pain, heartbreaking detours, and seemingly insurmountable odds. It assures us that our dreams, our trials, and our triumphs are all part of a larger, divinely orchestrated narrative. What part of Joseph's extraordinary journey resonates most deeply with you today? Have you, like Joseph, experienced a pit-to-palace moment in your own life? A time when a seemingly devastating setback turned into a stepping stone for something incredible? Share your thoughts, your reflections, and your own stories in the comments below. I absolutely love hearing from you. If this timeless tale has stirred your spirit, sparked a new perspective, or reminded you of God's incredible faithfulness, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this video with a friend or family member who needs to hear this message of hope. Tap the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring upload. Until then, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep shining the light of integrity wherever you go. See you in the next video.